Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have a great show for everybody today. What do we have, Crystal?
Indeed, we do. Once again, we have all of the latest for you coming out of Israel and Gaza, and the risks of that igniting a broader war is what we're starting our focus on today. We also have a little bit of movement in terms of humanitarian aid and the strikes that Israel has been committing on Gaza, hitting very close to home for Justin Amash, former congressman. We'll bring you that as well. And there's some new polling showing how the American people are viewing all of this. And I have to tell you, I was a little surprised by it.
So, yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, the details and the divides and all of that are very interesting to get into. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about what we know about what the future might look like in Gaza. A lot of question marks there right now, something the U.S. has been pushing Israel on. We also have some updates for you out of Trump world. Sidney Powell and Trump-aligned attorney Kenneth Chesebro have both pled guilty, seeming to flip, promising to testify for the prosecution. So we will take a look at what that means. And Dave Chappelle making some controversial comments, I suppose, about Palestinians and big audience reaction, big fallout from that. So we'll tell you everything we know about that as well.
I'm excited to see it. I just wanted to say before we started, thank you to everybody. People have been taking advantage of our focus group discount, but more importantly, we've just been getting so many nice messages from so many of the premium subscribers and others to be able to support work like that. So it's something we're genuinely trying to do here, which is different than everyone else. We put the full thing out as a podcast and on our YouTube channel if you want to go and take a look. Next one coming is going to be Independence. We're working on it right now, and if you can help us out with that, we would deeply appreciate it. But we're going to start with the news, as Crystal alluded to, about the fear of a broader war involving the United States, which is sweeping Washington. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. This is from an inside report of Axios. Headline, quote, "Behind the curtain, rattle U.S. government fears wars could spread." What they point to is that multiple officials inside of the White House said that this is, quote, "the heaviest, most chilling week since President Biden took office just over 1,000 days ago." And what they basically point to is the very basics of what we've already laid out here, which is that the response to the terrorist attack now at this point is seriously embroiling policymakers in fears of what comes next. Because it's not just about whether the situation can be contained to Gaza and Israel. Is Lebanon going to join this war? Is Hezbollah going to join this war? If so, then what? Is Israel going to bomb Iran? If they bomb Iran, is Iran going to retaliate against America? And then the United States, by supporting Israel, are we now inviting, jihadists to attack us through anger in the Arab world? And on top of that, what about the Iranians? And this has already come. I brought everybody the news on Thursday, Crystal, about the United States being attacked, on multiple bases in Iraq and in Syria. One of our civilian contractors actually died of a heart attack during the attack. But worse, really, is that we are officially now engaging Iranian proxies in Iraq and in Syria, and then also in off the coast of Yemen, where the USS Carney, a guided missile destroyer, was engaged in an hours-long shoot-down of multiple drones and missiles, which they say were headed towards Israel. So all of this is just igniting fear of this is before the so-called invasion has even begun. This is before, the ground, hand-to-hand combat, which is anticipated, is happening. At the same time, in fears of a bigger conflict with Iran. Let's put this up there on the screen. This is actually, in my opinion, the most significant piece of news from the U.S. military, not the carrier groups, not any of the other stuff. The U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has ordered additional forces to the Middle East, including the deployment of a terminal high-altitude area defense system, as well as additional Patriot batteries. Now, as Lucas Tomlinson here from Fox News aptly points out, Hamas and Hezbollah, they don't have ballistic missiles. Only Iran does. So, Crystal, the moment I saw the THAAD missile defense system being deployed to the region, I was like, okay, they are very, very seriously considering this. Just so people understand, these are the types of things that we deploy against North Korea and against very advanced military. So the idea that we would immediately deploy this system to the region, in addition to the Patriot missile defense systems, which the Saudis have used in the past against the Houthis, tells us that they are extremely concerned about a broader war, not with Hezbollah, not against terrorist groups like Hamas, directly with Iran. You don't do it otherwise.
Yeah, that is the big concern here in Washington, and something obviously we need to be concerned about as well, because this is an incredibly fraught, dangerous situation. That was supposedly the point of President Biden's trip to the Middle East, was trying to dissuade, trying to deter other actors from getting involved here. Also, while standing unequivocally beside Israel, apparently trying to talk behind the scenes to Netanyahu. There's reporting this morning that the U.S. has become more insistent on delaying that ground invasion. They are putting it, the way they are urging it is to try to deal with negotiating on the hostages before they push forward with the ground invasion. But this is just an incredibly, incredibly dangerous, chaotic situation. And if we zoom out even from, the immediate threat of a broader war and how that might implicate the U.S., how we might end up getting involved. And again, we talked about how they've already laid out the legal justification that it's not like they'd be asking you or me. They wouldn't even be asking Congress before committing troops if we did go in that direction. There's also the broader geopolitical picture of how this interacts with, hey, this isn't the only, war that we are somewhat involved with. You also have what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. And you have had attempts from the Biden administration to try to charm the global South. And they are looking at the situation in Gaza and Israel's relentless attacks. By the way, there was another massive barrage of missiles fired into Gaza overnight in a brutal assault on Gaza City in particular. They're looking at this very differently than U.S. policymakers are, and they see a massive amount of hypocrisy. New York Times actually reporting on this morning, and the view not only from Palestinians, but from the global South more broadly. They quote a Ramallah-based Palestinian political commentator who says when the war first broke out in Ukraine, Palestinians were actually elated by the tough stance taken by Western capitals against one country occupying another's land. But then they go on to say, it seems that occupation is only bad if the guys who are not on your side are doing it. So China and Russia, of course, taking advantage of this situation, consolidating more support among the global South. Countries like India trying to figure out how they are going to navigate, a complex situation for them as well. But, the disparate views of occupation, depending on whether it is Russia, our adversary, or Israel, our ally, is once again exposing the one consistent of U.S. foreign policy, which is our hypocrisy.
Yeah, and that is why the entire time, on Ukraine, I was like, look, the point, this whole democracy, autocracy, and all of that, obviously it falls apart at a cursory glance of U.S. interests, which is why the best way to conduct U.S. foreign policy is to talk about what's in it for us and does it benefit us to go into the net effect of how much we are funding this. That's the best way and always has been in order to conduct yourself as a state. However, here in Washington, policymakers and others twisting themselves into knots to try and justify why, if Israel were to be embroiled in a larger war, why it is worth actually the United States not going to war with Hamas, not going to war with Hezbollah, directly going to war with Iran. For a perfect example of what real bipartisanship looks like here in Washington, let's put this up there.